So good morning, good afternoon, or indeed good evening, depending where you are in the world. My name is Gina Bailey, and I'd like to welcome you to EyeforTravel's webinar on how to engage the connected traveler with omni-channel communications, organized in partnership with Syniverse. In case you're not familiar with EyeforTravel, we're a leading global provider of business intelligence for the online travel industry in the form of news, conferences, research, reports, and webinars. This webinar has been produced as part of EyeforTravel's ongoing research into how travel brands can really drive forward both customer engagement and revenues in the new multi-screen reality. Increasingly, our research shows that travelers want to engage with travel brands via multiple channels and devices, yet often a company's teams, resources and strategies are organized around the device and/or channel, and it can be very difficult to ensure channels are aligned, and also that communications are presented as a single voice to the customer. There are many benefits to be had by taking an intelligent, personalized approach when communicating with customers across all channels, and in today's webinar we're going to be addressing further details regarding how having an omni-channel communication strategy, what it really means, as well as the steps that travel brands might take to achieve it. We're really excited about the great speaker lineup we have for today's session. We'll be featuring speakers from Orbitz, WestJet and Syniverse. But before we get started, I just wanted to run through a couple of tips to help you get the most of the webinar. We like to keep our webinars interactive, so please know that throughout the webinar you can post your questions to the speakers in the chat box to the right-hand side of your screen. I'm going to try to ensure that they are answered at the end of the session. If we don't get through all of them today, then we will follow up with the questions post the webinar. If you'd like to tweet or follow the webinar conversation on Twitter, please use the hashtag #omnitravel. In addition, I'm also going to encourage you to participate in a live poll, which we'll use to gain immediate feedback from the audience. We'll provide clear instructions at the time of the poll and share the results directly with you. Just to highlight also that if you need to dash to a meeting or take an important call, then don't worry. We're going to be sending the full webinar recording to all registrants after it has finished. So now it's time to introduce our first speaker. We are very privileged to have Mary Clark, who is Chief Marketing Officer at Syniverse. With a history spanning more than 25 years, Syniverse has been a pioneer in mobile innovation, devising solutions for mobile service providers and brands alike. They work with some of the world's top mobile strategists to enhance revenue, encourage customer loyalty, and meet increasingly personalized end-user demands. Mary's career in mobile spans more than 20 years. Prior to being appointed Chief Marketing Officer, she held numerous SVP roles at Syniverse, where she spearheaded new product introductions, defined their LTE strategy, and played a strategic role in the company's acquisition of Mac. Prior to joining Syniverse, she held several executive-level positions at Mac, CTIA, the Wireless Association, Cybernet, and Cellular One. She's an Associate Director for the Competitive Carriers Association and serves on the CMO Council North America Advisory Board. So now we're going to hand over the presentation to Mary Clark.
The webinar itself is something that Syniverse. Thank you. Hi, this is Mary Clark. I appreciate the opportunity for being here today. The opportunity to participate in the webinars is really terrific for us, and we are very excited about having this. Hopefully, you can all see my screen here and are able to see the materials as we're going to go through. The way in which mobile is working to revolutionize the overall travel experience is something that I experience as a frequent traveler all the time. I'm on the road easily between Some months it feels like 100% of the time, but at least 50 to 75% of my time is on the road. And I've become increasingly dependent on mobile as my lifeline for real-time information to ensure that I have a smooth trip. And as is mentioned in the introduction, we are very much a part of the delivery of these kinds of solutions for real-time engagement with end users that are traveling the world today, serving more than 1,000 mobile service providers, as well as about over 550 mobile brands. And what we're looking to do here is bridge these partners together to deliver reliable connection and secure engagement of a customer base with high-quality services anywhere and any time, so that the end result is a highly effective customer touch point that's going to increase the loyalty and the revenue while promoting and protecting the brand. So what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about the opportunity for a brand to consider what we have been talking to many about recently, which is an omni-channel strategy. And I want to make a couple comments first, which is, as this slide is reflecting here, is a road warrior and is looking at multiple types of methods to communicate with a travel source or a travel-related provider. And what we are hearing more than anything is, how do I use mobile effectively? And omni-channel communications, just to be clear, is about 4 fundamental types of experience for a consumer. It's personalized, it's consistent, it's accessible, and it's efficient. It is a synchronized and holistic operating model in which a company's channels are all aligned and presenting a single face to a customer. In this model, a company is replacing the many views that often a customer will get today into one unifying view, enabling that brand to respond in a consistent way to the customer's evolving needs. This sounds like a utopia, right? And all of us are constantly fighting for the opportunity to invest and the way in which we can deliver a solution to our customer while meeting the requirements that we all have as business leaders to show a return on investment. What we're arguing here and what we're hearing about is that by making mobile the centerpiece of an omni-channel communication strategy, what that really puts in play here is the power of personalization, and going beyond some of the ways in which we communicate with our customers today. So the strategies that have been funneled into mobile so far, of whether it's TV or email or web or apps, it's taking that entire approach. The mobile app, for example, is clearly one that has to be a part of the mobile strategy, but as we all know, those are fraught with some challenges, as are many of the individual channels themselves. Apps are only going to work if you're in data, and it takes an action by the consumer to have them do something. So what we're looking at here is how do you go beyond that and try to find a way in which to engage and use other types of solutions. The hyper-personalized customer experience, for example, using location, which all of us know is a critical way of engaging that customer in real time, and it's going to build that brand loyalty, and it's going to have a more tailored engagement. But it's all about having real time. So today, one of the key things that we're finding is that nearly 50% of smartphone owners are open to receiving location-based messages, particularly if it means that it's going to be more personalized. The opportunity here of engaging with a consumer in a way that is personalized to them, we, in some respects, believe that this is highly valuable and has an opportunity for revenue for everyone in the ecosystem. We allowing a customer to choose what data they share and how a brand can interact with them is something that we call mobile context. We think we have estimated that mobile context, which is the insight into subscriber and consumer information, as well as behavior and location that is available to a mobile service provider, can be offered to brands for the purpose of improving customer engagement, is worth a $44 billion market opportunity. And we believe that this is really going to result in increased brand loyalty and revenue. So what I'm going to do now is walk you through a handful of use cases that are about personalization and multiple ways in which to have two-way communication with your consumer and the value of that investment. And then the subsequent speakers will talk about their specific solutions and their investments that they've made. So here you have the use case of the instant flight change. And this is clearly something that happens all the time. So allowing a delayed passenger who elects to receive an SMS update to reschedule a connecting flight. So sending that customer an SMS where he can reply yes to receive the next scheduled flight for that specific route. This is, am I taking option 1? Am I taking option 2? It is about having a very fast and real-time opportunity to engage with that consumer. This is very much a win-win where you're avoiding that consumer sitting there on the plane, unable to really connect anywhere if they don't have Wi-Fi. As soon as they, the plane touches the ground, they're lighting up their device, hoping to find out how they're going to get to where they next need to go in the case of a delay. And you have the opportunity to know exactly where they are and already know what their preference is. To that end, some of the research we've been able to find is that as many as 32% of passengers have indicated that they would prefer text message because, again, they don't have to take any action. It is something that is pushed to them. They don't need to have data, and it becomes a win-win here. Let's move to mobile check-in. I really like this one in particular. I travel internationally all the time, and I will land in London at an ungodly hour and want to know that as soon as I get to my hotel, I'm actually going to have a place to go and settle in. And here, once the travelers elect to receive an SMS update and arrive at their destination, they'll receive a notification from the hotel to check in. And maybe the investment is gone as far as receiving a mobile key code on their device so that they can actually get into the room. I mean, we're talking about where are we going and the investments that we want to put in place. And the opportunity to check in today and do so over a device has become very much a part of our standard behavior. We're checking in for just about everything as it relates to travel via a smartphone. And that's only going to continue. So as we sit back and think about the ways in which a consumer begins their interaction with us and begins their travel experience, what are the ways in which we can make that easier through the mobile device? And so this is a good example of that. The next example is certainly not one any of us enjoy thinking about, but it's the wake-up call. Here's a very simple way in which you can, again, have an interaction with the consumer that's in the hotel that's not dependent on them taking any action or utilizing anything else other than that device that is, not more than a few feet away from any of us to schedule a wake-up call. So say the hotel provides a short code, they can receive an SMS requesting the exact time to schedule the wake-up call and an SMS to confirm it. One of the things that we're talking about is as a part of the overall omni-channel approach from web to app to SMS to any of the channels available with mobile being at the centerpiece. One of the fundamental things that's still present today is the fact that you can get to 95% of devices through an SMS, and that's not likely to change. So we're very much focused on having that as a part of the strategy. So as you hear from the individuals here in the discussion and the ways in which the overall investments necessary to achieve these kinds of interactions with consumers, you go through this. There are obviously a handful of benefits, right? It's an improved business process for your own organization. Having the most efficient and enhanced customer service interaction is clearly a benefit. Having the opportunity to connect across all channels with a unified message is the end end outcome if we're looking for here, right? It's the end result that we're looking for. It's having the most innovative marketing campaign and notification and overall omni-channel delivery of messages to that consumer. This is certainly going to have the best approach. We are constantly talking about the personalized interaction, making sure that it is as personalized and tailored to that individual as possible. The opportunity to take that relationship and improve that engagement is simply going to improve everything that we need to improve, right? And it's going to be that that's going to drive our return on investment for finding these types of solutions. So creating that enriched customer experience through the precise mobile outreach is really what we're talking about with applying a mobile context to a consumer and interacting with that consumer based on their preferences and the way in which they want to be communicated and optimizing those channels. So I urge you as you go through and listen to the rest of the panelists and we talk through the Q&A to consider what are some of the issues that you're facing in considering investing in omni-channel communications, finding those arguments for the business case that are going to assist you in building the resources necessary to have that successful outcome of that highly engaged interaction with the consumer. So I thank you for your time and attention, and I will hand it back to Gina at EyeforTravel, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. That was a great insight into omnichannel communications and just how important personalization is going to be for travel brands going forward. Before I hand over to our next speaker, I wanted to quickly jump to a poll of the audience. So earlier, Mary was referring to the importance of the various different channels within the mobile platform. And so just out of interest, we're going to put forward a poll just to really gauge the audience's viewpoints on which channels they find are most important as part of their communication strategy. So we're just going to launch the poll. And so in front of you, you should be able to see the question, which is, of the channels you're currently using as part of your communication strategy, which 3 do you consider to be most important? Is it mobile app, mobile web, social media, SMS or M&S, or mobile email? So please select all 3 of the most important ones that you would consider important to your strategy. So I'm going to give you a few moments to cast your votes. So just whilst we're waiting for those votes to come in, we're just going to hold that question in front of you on the screen there. So we've got a good number of votes coming in now. We're just going to give you a few more moments. So I'm just going to count down from 5. So get voting, everybody. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're just going to share those results with the audience there. Right, so some interesting results there. Social media coming out tops there in terms of your communication strategies via mobile. And in second place, we're looking at the mobile app. And interestingly, lastly, we're looking at the use of SMS. So some of the stats there that Mary was sharing in terms of 32% of passengers preferring to be engaged by SMS could be an interesting insight there for some of the brands that are listening today. So now we're going to move on to our second presentation for the webinar. We're lucky to have Megan Hughes here, who's Director of Mobile Product from Orbitz Worldwide. So Megan's been working for Orbitz for the last 7 years in product management. She has worked on a lot of different products in her career at Orbitz, but spent the last 1.5 years leading the mobile product group responsible for apps, mobile optimized web, and push messaging. So we're very much looking forward to her presentation and some of the real-life cases she's going to be sharing from what she's been working on. So Megan, over to you.
Thank you, Gina. Thanks to EyeforTravel for having me, and thanks everybody for coming. So let me get this up here. All right. As Gina mentioned, my name is Megan Hughes. I'm the Director of Product Management for the mobile group at Orbitz. So I just wanted to take you through a little bit of the history from an Orbitz perspective of how we got to where we are with our investment in mobile, and then talk through a couple different examples of what we've been doing recently to address the multi-channel customer. All right, so several factors have shaped the way that Orbitz has been approaching the multi-device or omni-channel world from an optimization and a personalization perspective. So the first thing is that the ever-changing device landscape. So we are seeing that phones are getting bigger, tablets are getting smaller. We're seeing touchscreen PCs that are shipping more rapidly than ever. So we not only have to consider the touch versus mouse interaction, we also have to look at the wide range of viewport sizes and device sizes in the marketplace, and then also stay on top of the trends that are coming out related to wearables, smart TVs, all of the things that are probably going to be announced at Google I/O in the next hour here. In addition to those marketplace changes, Orbitz has also seen dramatic increases in our mobile booking penetration. So we now have over 30% of our hotel bookings coming through mobile channels, so mobile apps, mobile optimized websites, tablet optimized websites. So as we continue to increase our investment in these areas and make our experiences better, we see that the numbers are just continuing to rise. We also see, just from looking at booking data, we see that our customers are actually making bookings on more than one device type. So they're making bookings on their smartphone as well as on the desktop. And then we see in survey data from our customers that they prefer to use more than one device, especially during those initial travel planning stages. The majority of our customers are using more than one device during the travel booking process. In addition to when they're shopping for travel, we know, that the traveler is more connected than ever, and they actually are taking multiple devices with them during their trip. So at Orbitz, we've been investing in mobile for several years. We figured out fairly early on, that the changes in customer behavior were coming, and we were continuing to monitor, our own customers as well as the industry landscape to kind of help us with, the business case for justifying these investments. So we have many different optimized experiences for our customers. We have the desktop, the tablet, tablet optimized web, mobile optimized web, and mobile apps. We know that these customers are throughout their travel and booking process are visiting from multiple channels, and we're striving to provide that consistent Orbitz brand experiences, tailored with features that is specific to the device that they're currently using. Going back to 2010, we've had dedicated mobile technology teams that were focused on building out these experiences for each of the different channels that we support. And like I mentioned, our investment in the technologists that we've dedicated to mobile has grown as the traffic and booking penetration has grown. As a mobile group, obviously we have teams at Orbitz that are specialists for air and hotel and car. So we work with these internal teams to make sure that we're incorporating the best practices for selling flights. But we also are working with Google and Apple and Amazon to ensure that our experience is consistent with the app operating system. So I'd like to kind of go now into three different projects or initiatives more so that we've done over the past few years that we've really tried to tailor the experience to take into account the multi-channel customer. So the first area is responsive content. So, we're really looking to provide, a responsive UX based on the device that the customer is using. So we want to create that consistent experience no matter which device or app they're using, but also take into consideration the specific device. So on the left, we have an example of our native app, iPad and iPhone app, where we're showing additional content for the larger iPad screen. So this is an example of a flexible date search. So on the iPad, we're showing plus or minus 3 days for that search. And then on the phone, because it's a much smaller screen and we don't want to shrink everything, we've actually limited the content to a plus or minus 2-day search. So still providing the full functionality for the phone customer, but just tailoring that content based on the device. On the right, we have an example of our mobile and tablet optimized website. So this is the checkout path. So as I showed on the earlier slide, we see the number of devices and viewport sizes that are accessing our mobile websites. They're just increasing rapidly, over the past few years especially. So we've been moving at Orbitz on a few of our pages towards responsively designed pages. So the page that you're viewing on the right here, the checkout page, is actually the same code. It's a responsive page. So, we're taking the same content, but we're changing the layout down to the phone size. So we often, it depends on the page and the content, but taking, a 2-column layout and then shrinking it down, or collapsing it down to a 1-column layout for the phone, or collapsing content into a menu. So both of these examples kind of focus on tailoring the experience for the viewport so the customer gets the same content, but it's optimized to the device that they're using. The second tactic that we've used is integration with the native platform tools or native platform integrations. So like I mentioned, we're working with Google and Apple and Amazon, to keep up to speed with the latest features that they're launching on their mobile platforms, and then, really figuring out the ways to apply that to the Orbitz shopping, booking, and travel experience. So we want to take this, this guidance from the partners and then apply it to our own brand. So this is an example of our Android app where we are fully integrated with Google products. So we're integrated with Google Plus Sign-In and Google Wallet to really make this the booking experience frictionless. So I'll walk you through this example, but customers who are visiting our Android app are able to book without ever typing in, they're never launching that keyboard on mobile and typing in a single piece of information. So, walking from left to right here, they launch the Orbitz app on their Android phone. They sign in with Google Plus. Because it's the Android platform, they're probably already signed in, so they just hit the accept button. Then they, pull up the home screen of the app. They click on a recent search that they did for Sydney, pull up the Sydney results, click on the 4 seasons. They're already signed in using Google Plus, so they can now just click on the Buy with Google button, which launches Google Wallet. Everything is already saved in their Google Wallet, so they click on Continue, and they've just made a booking for the 4 seasons, Sydney hotel, without ever launching the keyboard or typing any information. So, this type of integration with the tools of the Android Google platform are making it easier than ever for customers on, this platform to make purchases for the Orbitz customer. In addition to the integrations within the path, we're also integrating with tools like Google Now as well as push messaging to build out flight status, flight delay, gate change alerts, into the push messaging that we'll send directly to customers while they're in their trip. So this is allowing the customer to receive the information at the time that they need it the most. We've also integrated from a push messaging perspective with sharing capabilities. So right from the push notification, you could send an email or an SMS to the person picking you up from the airport, letting you know that the flight is delayed. And then finally, the latest feature that we've been working on is really kind of to address the very beginning of the shopping process. So helping the consumers continue their shopping when switching between devices by remembering those recent searches and inspiring them to complete their purchase. So This feature pulls up a rich destination image of the location that you are searching for, as well as the details of your search. So for a customer who starts searching on their iPad for flights to Seattle, the next time they go and open their Android app, we will have an image of Seattle, and then the details of their search will be saved so they can pick right back up where they left off. So these are some of the features that Orbitz has been working on to address the multi-device customer. And thank you so much for listening and allowing me to join the webinar today.
Thanks so much, Megan. That was very insightful. We're now going to move swiftly on to our third and final presenter for today's session. Manoj Jaswar is from the Director of Online and Mobile Strategy from WestJet. He specialized in digital strategy for over 13 years. He's currently Director, like I said, at WestJet, which is one of North America's top airlines. He previously led online strategy at Shaw Communications, which is one of Canada's largest telecommunications companies. So Manoj, we're going to hand over straight over to you.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you for everyone for participating today. So yeah, as Gina said, WestJet is Canada's second largest airline, and compared to Orbitz, who have been investing in mobile for the last, I would say, 4 years, 5 years, WestJet is a little bit new to the game. So I think our major investments have come in the last 18 to 24 months in the mobile space, primarily because, you know what, we've invested a lot in the back-end infrastructure to begin with. We put a lot of time into the e-commerce platforms, the redundancy across data centers, to make sure when we were set up for mobile that we had the services in place so that we could actually fulfill the needs of the guests. As an airline, the most important thing for us is to get our guests safely from point A to B, and without hassle, and with a friendly and caring and an environment that produces that. So I'm going to touch on things that affect the airline space quite a bit, starting with a general overview of kind of issues that we face, and then giving you specifics on how we address the omni-channel communication. To begin, I just wanted to touch on how massive the opportunity is. I think everyone has seen the data, but it's just amazing when you look at it and just read it. So it's on the screen, but reading it out for you guys. 1.75 billion smartphones expected by the end of this year. Global mobile phone users to reach 4.5 billion, so including all phones. And the growth in terms of penetration rising from 61% to 69%. That's absolutely amazing. And then how mobile is exceeding the usage of desktop, that we spend over 3 hours a day on our mobile devices. And if you look at it on the key areas where people spend their time on mobile devices and how that's overpassing now on the desktop side. If you look at Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest specifically, people are using that on their mobile devices much more than they ever have on the desktop. Now, there's been a massive shift in communication platform, especially with us as well. Traditionally, where people have called into the call center or have used traditional email, people are expecting a different communication means now more than ever before. They're expecting notifications. They're expecting communications via Twitter and communications via social networks. As the poll said, there's a lot of interest now in the push notifications and communications via social, and we hope to capitalize on that. Users expect a lot more in terms of the performance of communications. If we're all connected basically 99% of the day, it's more than just sending a generic message or a generic notification. It's about time and location. So if you know where I am and what time I'm at in terms of the location or where I'm headed, I expect you to know that information. I expect you to send a very targeted message or a targeted piece of communication to me. That's what users expect. You should know that, you know what, sometimes I'm on a desktop, and sometimes I'm on a mobile device, and sometimes I'm on a tablet. Therefore, the experience should be tailored to the platform or the device I'm using. Every single website you go to these days has the ability to log in, and that's foundational from a brand perspective to capture attributes to the end user and end guest. so that you can create tailored experiences for them. So if I've interacted with or done business with you before, you should know something about me. It shouldn't be a generic blank slate when you start again. It was just interesting when I looked at the amount of communications we receive throughout the day. Now, as an airline, it's important that we get the communications to our end guests, but the end guests and users are overloaded with the amount of information that they receive. Push notifications, if you look at your notification center, messages from Facebook, all your apps, all your emails, all your phone calls, they add up to quite a bit of noise. Then how do you actually sift through that noise and deliver a message that's very targeted to that end user so that they can act upon it and receive messages that are actually very important to them? So it's almost back in the advertising days in that we receive so much communication to the forefront. Sorry, I'm just having some technical difficulties. One second, please. And then going on to the next slide. It's very important that you show value in terms of the end experience as well. Opting into the opt-in model is very important. So rather than having generic messages that are sent to guests, having messages that are very relevant to them. They want to see promotions. They want to hear about sales. They want to have very timely alerts. It's not about just sending generic messages anymore. And then I wanted to talk about the entire life cycle as well. Starting from dreaming, planning, booking, anticipating, en route to destination. There's phases across the entire journey that are very important to the entire guest, and there's opportunity for all of our brands to give proper notifications and a personalized experience across all these channels. Here's an example of EasyJet and United Airlines, where they're sending very targeted messages, just like how Mary mentioned. EasyJet mentions now like a simple notification, which is your check-in is now open, which means it's personalized to the location you're about to travel to. It's personalized to the device. On the other side, United has given a very targeted, very personalized, very responsive email saying that your flight is about to change, so please act upon this. And here's something which WestJet is currently doing. So on the day of the flight, we know that if there's a flight status or gate change delay, we send you a notification or via email. 48 hours before for the potential dark aircraft and that there's no entertainment, we send you a notification from that perspective. 24 hours before, we let you know that it's time to check in, so please do that. And kind of 72 hours before the actual duration of the trip, we send a courtesy notification saying prepare with your passport, with any of the necessary things you should pack in your baggage and things like that, preparing for your trip. In our mobile application, what we've done is we've added a trips capability where you can add your confirmation code, and that allows guests to check in and have a flight status based on the trip that's most relevant to you. And once you've checked in, the context changes, so a boarding pass is available to you, and you can readily see the flight status of that of the upcoming trip as well. In the future, we hope to add things like marketing promotions, push notifications, as well as if you are boarding to a dark aircraft, potentially an opportunity to upsell here's an iTunes free gift card, so please go get a movie or a book, preparing for that. And kind of to conclude, I think the most important thing is at the center is the actual user and the guest, but around that is the self-serve capability, the rewards and loyalty. So this is our strategy from a profile perspective. Having the ability to collect information when a person logs in and makes their booking or does research, then we have full capabilities around giving them self-serve opportunities, also enrolling them into a rewards platform, and then giving them enhanced communications. And the idea is to do this from a device-agnostic perspective. Some of the things that we measure that are important across the platforms to help us gauge how we're doing from a communications and a mobile perspective is how much impact are we having on the call center? Are we actually reducing some of that pain as we add more functionality? What does the mix look like across the different platforms, tablet, mobile, and desktop? How are they engaging? How are they consuming content? How long are they staying on? And furthermore, deeper into that is looking at the interactions by the various types. How are they interacting with mobile versus desktop versus tablet for flight statuses, for content in terms of baggage fees and travel information? How are they looking at boarding passes? How are they checking in, and how can we tailor that experience from a check-in perspective? And then we look at the growth and trends over those key events. So we want to look at into 2015 and 2016, what does the mix look like, so we can tailor our digital strategy to meet the end of needs of the guest. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Manoj. Some great insights there into what you've been working on at WestJet. So now we have a bit of time for Q&A to the speaker panel here. So please do use the question bar, which you'll see to the right of your screens, and feel free to send through your questions to each of the speakers. And we're going to be taking questions as and when, but hopefully if we don't have time for all of them, we'll be able to send them to the speakers and they'll be able to get back to you in due course. So my first question is, what are some of the barriers to implementing a truly omni-channel personalized strategy? And Mary, I'm going to ask this question firstly to you. So what are the barriers that you've seen some of the brands that you've been working with face? Sorry, we're just having a tech issue here. Sorry, Mary, could you just repeat that?
Oh, of course.
Sorry.
The primary issue that we've seen is the opportunity to get prioritization inside of within the organization, whatever the brand is facing. So in the case of some of the folks we've spoken with in travel, one of the key issues has been synthesizing the data that they have about their consumers' behavior. So as Manoj mentioned, being able to have that data at hand that gives them the right information about the behavior that a consumer has been reflecting, and being able to synthesize that information into changing a strategy. So if the majority of their current consumers are touching a website for check-in as opposed to utilizing a mobile device or vice versa, the data that's available and being able to take that data and put it into an actionable omni-channel plan and having an efficient IT strategy with which to do that is one of the biggest issues. And so what we're talking to people clearly about is, how do you find the right partner to help you do that and make sure that you're optimizing your overall strategy. But it is very much a practical implementation issue of taking a strategy at a conceptual level and being able to practically implement it from an investment perspective.
Mm-hmm. And Megan, what would your perspective be on that question? What has been the biggest barrier that you've faced so far?
Yeah, I think as Mary was saying, the prioritization is definitely a challenging area. So one of the things that it's still a little bit of a nebulous thing to crack here in the mobile space is making sure that you have the right tracking and attribution. So I mentioned at Orbitz we're looking at, we see customers making bookings on more than one channel. We see people, in survey data who are using more than one channel, but, we're still trying to really crack that attribution problem. So if somebody is shopping on one device but booking on another one, and kind of giving the proper credit to each of our different channels really helps with the prioritization. And then looking at that customer lifetime value across the multiple channels to really get a good picture of how much we should be investing. So, we've been going at it for quite a few years, so we're getting closer to really having that full picture. But I think that's kind of an issue that we ran into at the beginning was, if people are using more than one device, it's hard to really make the case for that investment. So, the biggest barrier for us is just, then deciding which channel to really invest in. So because we've been going at it for a while, we now have kind of the appropriate mix, for the current device landscape of where we're investing, and it is spread out over many different channels, but it's taken us a while to get there.
And Manoj, what's your experience been when it comes to the barriers of really achieving a personalized omnichannel strategy?
Yeah, the biggest barrier that we face as an end service provider is that business priorities and how do you enable those, right? So if you look at it in that digital and mobile is one part of the piece from an airline or even a hotel or a service provider from that perspective. So how do you make the business case which says, you know what, investing in mobile, which is a large touch point, obviously, is more important than, say, fuel savings or adding a different piece to the plane which makes it more efficient, or adding a more seatback monitors on the plane, right? So I think that's the biggest barrier we face is how do you use the analytics, the feedback from guests, and really make a strong business case to implement a strategy which isn't just a strategy for a 6 or 12-month period, but the strategy for the next 3 to 5 years as mobile gains more and more share and becomes the most predominant channel that, say, guests use as they interact with brands.
Sorry, I'm just looking ahead to the next year then, Manoj. You know, you mentioned at the end of your presentation, you know, you're preparing your brand for the right platform and device mix that you might see in 2015. Do you have any insights that you might want to share in terms of what you think will be changing as we move into 2015?
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting. We're obviously in Canada, so the mix to me looks a lot different than the mix, what it looks like in terms of the rest of the world, where Android is taking over from, say, the US and I believe in Europe and across Asia and things like that. But what we're seeing is iOS is still the most predominant platform. We're still seeing a heavy mix on the iOS side. From a pure platform perspective, we feel that by the end of next year and probably into 2016, that tablet and mobile will be very close to parity compared to desktop. So it's important for us to make a pretty heavy investment in that area as guests shift to those channels.
Mm-hmm. Megan, would you agree with that?
Yeah, we definitely are taking a look. I think the thing for us that's, you know, we see Android increasing as Manoj was saying, but you know we've been investing with Android for quite a while now, so I think we're kind of well positioned to take advantage of that. The thing that we're really keeping an eye on, and I can't say that we're you know that we're committed to investing in these areas, but you know we're taking a look at, you know, apps for you know, how does our Amazon app look on the Fire TV, and then you know when things like the watch comes out, you know, these are, you know, the watch in particular, smartwatches are things that travelers are taking with them while they travel. So, you know, how does Orbitz really think about these types of things? If folks are familiar with Google Now, Google Glass actually is integrated with Google Now. So if you had the travel card up, you know, and you're wearing Google Glass, you know, you'll see kind of your travel status on those travel cards within that experience. So, you know, I'm not saying in 2015 that we're going to see a super large shift, but I think that's kind of the direction that things are going. So we're keeping a very close eye on what's happening in that area as well.
Mm-hmm. And Mary, what would your viewpoint be on some of the evolving technologies that we're seeing going into 2015?
I think the comments that have been made so far about the operating systems and the devices are really pertinent, because it clearly means that there's so much to juggle to make sure that you do have this consistent and holistic and synchronized approach to engaging the consumer, while it also, you know, needs to be tailored and personalized. I would add that the mobile service providers globally are clearly now aware of the relevance that they play in being able to provide real-time information, unlike no other source. Google Now is a great example that Megan brings up, which is it is so very much focused on the device, and it has such intuitive knowledge about what the consumer is doing. But I was just at a show in Shanghai a couple weeks ago, and you know, it can get it wrong. I had a guy sitting next to me saying, "Well, you know, it's telling me that it's 45 degrees where I live," and he's, you know, from Alaska, and he's sitting in Shanghai. You know, it doesn't necessarily always work. The only one that always has a consistent understanding of exactly where you are, what device you've got, and what service is available to you is the operator. And so I would say that what we're talking to people about, and certainly what we're hearing, is a brand's interest in engaging, particularly travel service providers, engaging with mobile network operators to obtain that kind of data to have the most contextual and timely information about a consumer. Because if you're going to be dependent upon an app, you've got to have data. Well, do they have LTE? Do they have 3G? What kind of device do they have? All of that's known by the operator. It's not known by any other source. And so understanding how to incorporate the operator's data into this approach, I think, is going to be more and more of a trend that we're seeing and talking to people about in 2015.
Mm-hmm. And then just a question to you, Mary. So, what are some of the things that have maybe gone wrong that you've seen? I mean, people have been mentioning, the risk of a communication overload with customers. What are some of the issues that brands might need to look out for when they're sort of aiming towards this really tailored, personalized approach?
This is evolving just like any other approach that has involved outreach to a consumer set. And leveraging mobile, to date, I think the only set of issues that we've consistently seen is getting perhaps too ahead of and too dependent on one particular method of communicating with a consumer, and becoming too dependent on perhaps email, or too dependent on the consumer selecting push notification. And frequently it's not because of a lack of insight on what the strategy should be or could be. It is more to, as Megan so definitely showed, as well as Manoj as well, that there's such an enormous burden to really fully integrating mobile into a strategy. When you think about all of the different issues that you've got to place and deal with, you've got and have had some sort of digital strategy to communicate with a consumer. It's taking that digital strategy and putting mobile ahead of that and saying mobile is going to be the centerpiece on how I communicate with my consumers. All of my digital strategies that I've been employing for the last 15 years needs to be integrated into that, as opposed to essentially saying mobile is this piece that I need to bolt on to the side of my digital strategy. And I think that that's where we've seen the most friction and the most challenges for brands being able to move forward and leapfrog and have the most effective mobile engagement. So it's looking at that and saying strategically, where do I need to invest, and am I simply have been behaving in a particular way associated with digital and thinking that digital is my forefront, but really mobile needs to go ahead of that. I would say is really what we've seen the challenges arise from.
Yeah, I completely agree. Certainly some of the conversations we've been having at the EyeforTravel conferences, it's that realization that mobile has to be integral to the whole strategy and not just something that has been tagged on. Manoj, just going back to some of the points in your presentation, you mentioned you were looking at the impact, for example, on call center inquiries, and is it really reducing the pain of researching and booking travel? What were some of your insights that you might be able to share on that? Okay, we're just having some technical issues with Manoj's connection. So, Megan, would you be able to answer that question?
Sure, yeah. So, I definitely would echo what Mary was saying about having it integrated into the strategy. I think, using data, it's very easy to make that case once you see the customer shift. But, one of the other points I wanted to touch on was just, with this type of strategy and looking at the multi-channel and trying not to overwhelm, I think that the thing to really think about is just putting the customer first, because it's fairly easy from a technology perspective to come up with all the different places that you could have customer touch points, but really thinking about the customer and making sure there's a compelling reason for the personalization, so there's not kind of this this perception that it's creepy, or somebody is watching you kind of while you're moving throughout your trip, but it's really done for a purpose, and it's done to kind of integrate well with the actions that the customer is already taking.
And how do you balance, Megan, the sort of opportunities that you might have as a brand to upsell to the customer versus providing useful communications? Do you ever find there's a conflict there, or sort of a decision to be made in terms of, what you feel the customer actually wants from your brand?
Yeah, so again, we kind of go back to the data, and one of the areas that I didn't really touch on throughout the presentation is just the reliance on small A/B or multivariate testing. So we do a lot with those types of testing frameworks at Orbitz to judge customer engagement. In addition to kind of layering in different surveys. So, from looking at customer engagement, we can get a view into, if we do offer a cross-sell, let's say we offer a cross-sell in an email that we send out to a customer, we can see how many people are deleting versus, actually going in and booking a hotel, for example, through a cross-sell. So we definitely are heavily reliant on the data to let us know kind of what the overall customer sentiment is when we're moving forward with new features.
Mm-hmm. And Mary, from your viewpoint, have you got any examples of brands that have managed to really balance useful communications that you mentioned, the ability, for example, to let someone know that their flight's running late or things like that, with the opportunity to upsell?
We have definitely spoken to and have worked with a few, unfortunately I'm not in a position to mention, but I will definitely say that this is probably a bit more nascent than I think perhaps everybody on this call would like it to be, in that so far the focus and I think appropriate attention has been on just having the most possible highly tailored and customized experience available has been there. But we are definitely talking to people about how do you upsell. So things like passes to clubs and drink coupons and the ability to upgrade to a concierge level. Those kinds of things have been definitely parts of the conversations and solutions that we've been talking to people about for a number of months now, but I would say it's more along the lines of months and maybe less than 12. I think, and this is again more an issue of getting the right prioritization on the solutions that need to be in place, and less about sort of the opportunities that have been considered. There's a lot of very creative approaches here that we've talked to people about. It's just really how do you get them implemented, and doing so in a way that's going to be the most effective and cost effective. So. But I definitely believe that this is where we'll start to see this go, because clearly what we're talking about here is if the consumer can directly benefit from a mobile engagement beyond just convenience, and they can get something out of the use of mobile, for example, as a way in which to, I think Manoj made the question or made the statement about using this as a self-serve portal, and in driving consumers to a mobile experience to make it more efficient for all involved. There are ways in which, lots of ways, particularly in travel, that a consumer can be rewarded and directly benefited there to drive them to mobile. So we're definitely hearing a lot about that, and I think that that's something that will be much more of a centerpiece on a broadly adopted basis over the next 12 to 18 months.
Mm-hmm. So it's driving real benefits then in terms of increasing customer loyalty, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's actually all we've got time for in terms of the Q&A. If I could just ask each of you, Mary and Megan, we've actually just lost connection with Manoj, just to summarize one tip for the audience, and what would that be if they're just embarking on really prioritizing where to invest when it comes to creating an omni-channel personalized strategy? Oh, sorry, Mary, can I start with you?
Oh,
Megan?
Sure, okay.
Sorry.
Sure, I would say that the first place to start is with the customer, and putting the experience of the customer in its current state in a very objective and comprehensive way, and then then moving towards what is the end state that you want the customer's experience to be, and understanding what is the prioritization that you would put on each of those phases, because clearly you can't make the flash cut. So what's the objective that you're trying to achieve in engaging and utilizing a more comprehensive and synchronized mobile strategy, and trying to put the customer at the forefront of that in envisioning the experience that you want them to have, and what is the most effective way to get from where you are today to where you are tomorrow, and using the prioritization as a real practical issue is going to help get you there to where you need to be.
Megan, what would your tip be?
Sure. So, I think my main tip is just, keeping the brand consistent, but tailoring the experience, to the device size and the platform, and integration with those platform features that, the customers are used to using, for that particular device.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thanks so much then to our presenters. It's been a fantastic session with, some great insights from all three of you. We are now going to close the webinar. So we're going to be sending the full recording to all those who registered so that you can go back over the slides and the insights shared with the speakers today. If you wanted to get in touch with some of the speakers, then by all means reach out to them. We've put their Twitter handles on the screen for you there. Or alternatively, feel free to email me. My email address is gina@eyefortravel.com, and I'll happily connect you. So we're going to be discussing this theme in much more depth at EyeforTravel's autumn conferences. We have 3 events this autumn. One of them is in New York. It's our North American Summit, which is on September 11th, 12th. The other one we're looking at is in Berlin, which is the 1st and 2nd of October. It's Online Marketing, Mobile and Social Media and Travel Summit. And then we also have the Smart Travel Analytics Europe Conference in November in Amsterdam. So I do hope that we'll all be able to have these discussions face-to-face next time. And thanks so much for everyone for joining us, and best of luck with your mobile omni-channel endeavors.